there was some conversation about um, the presets on here. Why is everybody in the demos using the presets? Can't you get rid of those and load your own stuff? So I just wanted to show that real quick. There we go. So under File, you have Project, Song, Pattern, Preset. Under Preset, you can go to Manage. Here's all your presets. You don't necessarily, my understanding is you don't have to have them loaded into a project because these are like, samples and settings together. So you don't need to have these in here. And of course, you can click on one and you have the option to delete it. New project. Everything's empty. Let's go like this. Let's go. User samples. I put a bunch of single cycles in here. Here's how you load something into a project. You can put a little check mark next to it. It's hard to see there. Then once you get those, you hit the right arrow and you do load to project. So now, if I go to a single player, function source, single player, yes. Under source, this knob here, which is the D knob, will change the preset, or the sample rather. So there we go. Here's some of my single cycles. So we'll start off with something basic. See what this sounds like. Here, it's just a click. We're going to turn looping on. And previously I thought that this was why is the playhead moving around like that? That's not the playhead, that's the refresh rate on the screen. So that's kind of disappointing. And let me see how it looks on the camera. Yeah, that looks like the playhead is running backwards. And you see on the loop, it's in forwards. And I've played with this and it's really just a refresh rate. The funny thing is that it's not good, but it's only an issue on really short samples because the playhead's moving it basically at audio frequency. So you shouldn't even really be able to see it. So it misrepresents that. That's fine. So yeah, single cycles. Now look at the precision on that. That's a single cycle, and I'm able to really get in there, which means that the resolution on this thing's sample engine is crazy. Granular is definitely on the table. So what can we really do with this? Here we got a single cycle. And the thing I kind of like about this is that the settings and the sample are separate, which I guess is, yeah, it's not that rare of a thing, but I like being able to swap a sample and it's not like changing a preset. So let's build up a little patch. It's weird, I'm not getting any release. This spread parameter on page 2 of the filter is really cool. It offsets the left and right ears. Honestly, a really cool way to add stereo to a mono sample. All right, let's try putting a LFO to that stereo spread. Source. Stereo spread. So a brief side rant here. I get the machine idea, but at the same time I don't like it. So the idea to be like, oh, I've got a synth voice that can be a in a bass line mode, or it can change to a lead synth, or it has a percussion mode. This idea, what you're doing is you're limiting or modifying the interactions between the different parts of the synth engine with itself. So maybe you make a more snappy envelope that would be preferred for percussion. Oftentimes you want the wave to always start at a zero crossing point, so you don't get a pop at the beginning of your percussion sounds. That makes sense. But it feels like what Elektron did here that's frustrating to me is kind of the opposite. They have machines to simplify the idea of a, full-fledged sample engine, which there's plenty of full-fledged samplers out there. I don't think the complexity, the idea has been around for a long time. We're talking about simplifying the ideas from the 80s. We can handle that engine. But then you tried to give us super complex envelopes and LFOs. And it's kind of like, maybe make those the machines. Maybe I can choose a percussive envelope, a more musical envelope, a complex LFO, a simple LFO. I think that might be more the way this should go, because I could do an entire video explaining how the LFOs work or the envelopes work. But meanwhile, the sampler is relatively simple. And maybe that's the idea, complex parts with a simple engine. Maybe that is what they're after, but I find it a little frustrating.
So on your LFOs, this shape knob phases the LFO. See that? But on your stepped random, it's the slew or the smoothing. That's a nice touch right there. I really wish you could assign multiple destinations. This lack of a proper modulation matrix, or just, yeah, I don't know. All right, so we got a little something going there. Let's see here. What am I missing on the release? All right, another quick complaint here. Once again, unless I don't see it in here, how do you set your bass note? Now, what I mean by that is the root note of your sample, which is relatively important, because if I think I found the release function. That's frustrating. So under let's see here, you do function trigger, and loop mode can be in sustain, where it only loops when you're on the sustain stage, or continuous, where it'll loop until it fades out. That's a game changer right there. Hot tip. So kind of like anything, if you get too far from the original pitch, it starts to break up. Pretty good job though. Another example just showing how it pitches samples. Normally, I'd say that's unusable at that point, but I heard something in there I kind of liked. Let me see if I can take that. I'm gonna work with that. I'm trying to get those that like harp sound, I think it is. Right there. It'll be a little tough. So because this crazy resolution, it's really tough to get precise. You have to really be gentle with the knob, but that sounds pretty good, like what I'm looking for. Let's maybe high pass it. Now can we resample that? Mm. Again, that's kind of weird. So yes arms it and yes stops it. I hit no thinking that that would stop it, but no takes you out of the screen, which is kind of cool. So you can edit things while you're resampling. So if you're a SP user, that's great.
What I mean by that is I started off on the original 404, and the workflow on that thing is basically you resample your performance in order to create a loop. It's not so much sequencing. So it's kind of opposite to the typical Electron workflow. I think the original intention for the 404's resampling was so you could stack effects because the 404 has a single effects unit, multi effects. You'd put your distortion, you'd resample it, then you'd run it through the reverb and resample it to get that sound you wanted. That's the sound design method. And the Tonverk is kind of similar. It's about stacking effects, but it's got so much power, there's no reason to resample in order to stack effects necessarily. Um, I used it here to pitch down a sample, but I think that it opens up a lot of possibilities. You could, in theory, bounce an entire track down to a single file in order to make yourself have more space on that 8 track limit. Not that I would ever run out of space with 8 tracks, but if you feel limited by it, you can always resample and bounce things down. You could even technically record an entire song or performance using resample. So there's a lot of things you could do with that. That also opens up, unquantized playing, allows you to get off the grid.
Not sure what the sample maximum sample length is, but that could be huge. Let's see here. Let's from this screen, after you sample something, which I can't find a way to return to, the sample edit page as they call it. I don't know how to get back to this once I leave it, but from here, look at all the stuff we can do. So I resampled it pitched down and then I loaded it into the same tracks, which kept me on the same octave. Now it's way too low, so we're gonna clear out a lot of the stuff we did here. And we'll take it back up to 0, which should be what I had it pitched to. Okay, so then if we want to modulate something, we can do, let's see here. FX LFO. Interesting. Let's do, we do effects wet dry. Is it going to do effects 1, 2, or both? All right, well, I don't know. Another interesting thing I noticed is that when you sample a sound, it stays in this little like sample buffer, and you could make multiple chops right there off the sound. Let me see if I could do, well, I'll show that later, but that's kind of a cool feature. So sort of like the sample edit is like a buffer. You can put something in there and then you can chop pieces out and assign it. So if I was doing hip hop or chopping samples, that would really be useful. I didn't necessarily have intentions for the Tonverk to be a sound design synthesis machine, but seeing how it has a key bed and it's polyphonic, I would have assumed that it would have had some sort of sound design capabilities. And I'm not saying they're not there, they're just not what I was expecting. It's definitely a unique device. I mean, it's hard to compare it to anything. Obviously, visually, its closest comparison would be the Analog 4. Um, but the Analog 4 is much more synth focused, as in you can have multiple oscillators on a single sound. You can send the LFO and the envelopes to two different destinations, where this one only has one destination. You also have the macro controls on the Analog 4, which would really go a long ways on this. But seeing as that this has a performance mode, it could be implemented later on. That'd be cool. Really, with this device, I mean, you can feel the amount of CPU power that's there. It's in the early stages. Any development could be a game changer. If you added the ability to time stretch, I would probably replace my beloved SP404 MK2 with this. Um, there's actually a lot. That's actually a fair comparison right there. The SP404 MK2 has the dual effects buses along with master effects, which is similar to the architecture that's going on here. And yeah, if it wasn't, I mean, this can already record long clips or long samples if it wasn't for the fact that you can't time stretch them. So you'd be locked in at 1 BPM, which isn't the worst thing ever. That's reminiscent of the original 404 and a lot of samplers I've used, older samplers that can't time stretch either. So it wouldn't be the end of the world, but you add time stretching to this thing and it's a production, centerpiece. It's taking my SP404 at least out of here. It's becoming my multi-track recorder. But as far as its synthesis abilities, it leaves a lot to be desired still. This single cycle thing that I showed in this video is probably one of the better things I've found. It sounds really good, but even with that being said, you only get a single oscillator, for lack of a better term. I mean, it's a sample that's looping, but you get one of them. Now you could play multiple voices in order to stack it, but there's no way to tie them together so they move together. So you could sequence a more complicated synth voice by using multiple tracks with different or detuned single cycle waveforms. But that's very awkward. Now, are they going to release a machine like that? That would make some sense to me, where it's multiple samples stacked and you can detune them and such. Um, but yeah, that I mean, that it does sound good. It's not necessarily worth the price tag, but there's so much else in here that we're not going to really discuss. This is a value proposition. I mean, I could tell you right now. I mean, it's a very expensive piece in my world, but it's uh, definitely worth it. There's $1,600 worth of gear right here, even without any updates. Like what you're getting is worth your while. But I just still am puzzled on the idea of like a sort of a pro level synth style sampler, which appears to be what they're going for, but it feels half baked. Now, like I said, it could do some phrase sampling stuff. Now we're talking. I mean, that's all there. It's ready to go. Just, add the time stretching and we're off to the races. But I'm still confused with the multi sample part. Based on the power and what they've talked about, how they went to this new platform because it has a lot more room to grow and headroom, I imagine that there's going to be some pretty incredible things coming down the pipeline. I mean, to only have 3 machines, that feels limited. I think we're going to see more effects, more machines, and then some things ironed out with what's already there. This is definitely going to be an incredible machine. I don't think it's there quite yet, and I don't think that the whole machine architecture is necessarily for me. Yeah, that's where I'm at after day 4. If you're still listening to my video at this point, I appreciate it. Sorry for the delays. Kind of the earlier part of the video I recorded, as I was exploring more authentically on my day 3. But then the voiceovers I did later as I edited the video up. So they're more reflective. A couple things I want to add on for those that made it this far. If you are using the single cycle synth thing that I was explaining earlier, I would highly suggest you go into one of your LFOs, set it to a random, and then assign it to the sample start point. So therefore, it'll imitate a free running oscillator like you'd have on an analog synth, because the single cycle will start at a random spot every time versus starting at the beginning each time, more like a hard sync or a key synced oscillator, more of a digital sound you'd get. Another tip is I mentioned earlier that there wasn't a way to return to that sample edit screen, which makes the machine kind of feel more like a bit like a romulator and less like a sampler, because everything you do to the sample in the machine is non-destructive, right? So you can change start points and do all sorts of things to it, and it's the original sample is still preserved, which is a good thing. But if you want to do this is like something that I always got frustrated with on the Deluge when I had that. It had this same sort of mentality. Like it almost felt like they wanted you to edit your samples on a computer and then upload them, like not actually sample them into the device. So if you want to edit a sample, the move is to resample it, and then that new version, you'll be in that sample edit screen where you can chop and adjust things, and then you'll be able to write that to a file. That's the move. It's kind of strange that they don't let you go into that sample edit screen on an existing file, or if it's there, I don't know how to do it, but the only way I found was to hit the resample to get back to that screen. And that's all I got for you.